I saw my mom with her lover in our house. She forced me to lie. I carried her secret for years and now my whole family hates me. The first time I hated someone I loved was at 2:17 p.m. on a rainy Thursday. My name is Lila, I'm 27 years old, and I work as a freelance graphic designer, but back then, I was just a sick, feverish 14-year-old curled up on the living room couch, half watching a muted soap opera. The sound of the front door swinging open made me jolt upright under the blanket, heart pounding. I thought maybe it was Dad coming home early, maybe he'd bring me soup or sit with me, like he always did when I was sick. But it wasn't Dad. Through the crack of the door I saw her. Mom. And a man who wasn't my father. His hands were all over her like they belonged there. Their mouths crushed together in a kiss so fierce it didn't look like love, it looked like hunger. She giggled, the same laugh she usually saved for family dinners, soft and golden like honey. I remember squeezing my eyes shut so hard it hurt, wishing I could erase the last 30 seconds of my life. When I opened them again, they were still there, and worse, Mom was staring right at me. Our eyes locked. Her face went pale as milk. And then slowly she smiled. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. She wasn't just scared. She was planning what to do about me. She sat me down at the kitchen table like she was about to explain something simple, like why the sky is blue, or why sugar ants came inside when it rained. Instead, she leaned forward, her fingers laced tightly together, knuckles whitening. Lila, she said, her voice a low syrupy hum. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. But if you love this family, if you love your father and your brother, you'll keep this to yourself. You'll protect us. I was 14. I still believed family meant something sacred, unbreakable. I still believed that grown-ups were good, that moms were protectors, not threats. I nodded. I didn't even speak. I was too scared to. I remember the air conditioner buzzing faintly above us, cold air blowing against my sweaty, fevered skin. I remember the smell of her perfume, lilac and vanilla, almost sickeningly sweet. I remember wondering if I would ever stop shaking. And I remember thinking, if I tell, I ruin everything. From that day on, it was like part of me went missing. Like I'd tucked away some important piece of myself inside a locked, windowless room and thrown away the key. I smiled when I was supposed to smile. I laughed at dinner when Dad made his dumb puns. I helped my little brother with homework, even when my stomach twisted into knots so tight it felt like I might throw up at any second. And every time Mom hugged me, every time she tucked a strand of hair behind my ear or left a note in my lunchbox, a bitter, burning thought flickered in the back of my mind. Liar. 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 I started getting stomachaches that no doctor could explain. I stopped trusting the sound of the front door. Every creak of hinges made my body lock up in terror, wondering what secret might walk through next. I learned to live with the constant fear that one wrong word, one stray look, would tear my whole world apart. When Dad would beam at Mom across the dinner table, pride and love written all over his face, I would feel physically sick with guilt. When my brother made her macaroni necklaces and called her the best mom ever, I wanted to scream until my throat tore open. But I said nothing. For years I said nothing. Because she'd made me believe that speaking up would make me the villain. That saving the truth would be the same thing as killing my family. I carried that secret like a stone in my chest through high school dances, college acceptance letters, my first job offer, even my wedding day. Mom standing there in the front row, smiling through tears as I said, I do, to the man I loved more than anyone, while inside, part of me was still that 14-year-old girl, frozen at the kitchen table. Promising to protect the very person who had shattered her. I thought maybe if I was good enough, loyal enough, loving enough, I could undo it. I thought silence was safer than truth. I thought silence was love. I didn't know it would come for me one day like a freight train years later, long after I'd convinced myself the worst was behind me. But it did. And it hit harder than I ever could have imagined. The first sign that the dam was about to break came in the smallest, stupidest way. Dad found an old, faded photo tucked into one of Mom's cookbooks while clearing out the attic, a photo of her and that man. Arms wrapped around each other like teenagers, smiling too brightly. It was dated 6 months before the day I caught them. When Dad showed it to me, laughing at first, saying, "Do you know this guy?" Must have been an old friend, my hands turned to ice. I mumbled something, a no, a maybe, I don't remember, and ran to the bathroom to dry heave into the sink. That night, I lay in bed next to my husband, Evan, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles above us, feeling my whole life tilt sideways. The past, the thing I thought I'd buried so deep no one could ever dig it up, was clawing its way to the surface. Piece by rotten piece. Dad started asking questions. He's never been good at letting go of a thread once he starts pulling. First it was little things, strange receipts, mysterious phone calls. Then bigger things, late nights, odd behavior, missing money. Mom deflected. She gaslighted him with practiced grace. Tears welling up instantly, accusing him of being paranoid. Of trying to destroy our family with your crazy suspicions. The same fear she had planted in me bloomed in him too, in a different, more twisted form. But unlike me, Dad didn't back down. He dug deeper and deeper until he found it. Emails, bank statements, pictures. A second secret life sprawled out across a cheap, disposable laptop she kept hidden in the back of her closet. I didn't know the full extent of it until much later. But when he stormed into the family group chat, dropping screenshots like bombs, I knew. I knew it was all over. The worst part wasn't just that Mom had betrayed him. It was that in one of the emails she mentioned me. Lila knows. But she promised to stay quiet. She understands why it has to be this way. Reading that message felt like swallowing glass. In one cruel stroke, she turned me from victim to accomplice. She made it sound like I had helped her, like I had chosen her over them. And no one, not Dad, not my brother, not even Evan, gave me a chance to explain before the silence settled like a noose around my neck. I remember standing in my kitchen holding my phone, as message after message rolled in. Dad, how long have you been lying to me, Lila? My brother, Josh. Unbelievable. You're just like her. Evan, why didn't you tell me? How could you let this happen? Each text was a bullet. Each accusation carved a little more of me away. I dropped the phone. It hit the tile floor with a crack that sounded like a bone breaking. And for the first time in my life, I didn't just feel guilty. I felt hated. I felt alone. I slid down the cabinet door until I was sitting on the cold kitchen floor. Arms wrapped around my knees, rocking back and forth, whispering, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. But there was no one there to hear me. No one who would have believed me even if they did. Outside, the world kept spinning. Cars drove by. Neighbors laughed on their porches. Somewhere a dog barked. Inside, my life was ending in slow motion. And I didn't even know who I was trying to save anymore. It was a Sunday when they all showed up. Dad, Josh, Evan, and her. Mom arrived last, wearing a soft pink sweater like she thought the color could soften the blow, like she could dress herself back into the role of loving mother one last time. It almost worked, until she opened her mouth. You made your choice, Lila, she said before anyone else could speak, her voice trembling with practiced pain. You could have told the truth when it mattered. My head snapped up. The truth. I said, my voice raw, shredded. You made me promise to protect you. You forced me to stay silent. The air in the dining room thickened, heavy and suffocating, like a storm rolling in through the windows. Dad leaned forward, elbows on the table. His wedding ring glinted under the overhead light. You're telling me she knew about this? For years? His voice cracked on the last word. Mom's eyes shimmered with crocodile tears. She looked at Dad, then back at me, painting herself as the victim with every trembling breath. She knew. She chose to protect me. If she cared about you, John, she would have told you a long time ago. A beat of stunned silence. Then Evan stood up so fast his chair screeched across the tile floor. Jesus Christ, Lila, he muttered, running his hands through his hair, staring at me like he didn't even recognize me. My heart was pounding so hard it blurred the edges of my vision. I tried to find words, but they kept crumbling before they left my mouth. I was a kid, I finally choked out. I was 14. She terrified me into staying quiet. I didn't want this. I didn't. You're not 14 anymore, Josh snapped, his voice like a whip crack. You had plenty of chances. I flinched like he'd hit me, because he wasn't wrong. The truth was I had chances. Every family dinner. Every birthday party. Every Sunday phone call. I had locked my mouth shut and swallowed every opportunity whole. Because if I said it out loud, it would all fall apart. Because if I said it out loud, it would be my fault. But now, it was falling apart anyway. And somehow it was still my fault. I turned to Evan, my last lifeline. Evan, please. You know me. You know I wouldn't. He shook his head. Eyes glassy. Hands clenched into fists at his sides. I thought I knew you, he whispered. Mom sat there, her pink sweater bright and innocent looking against the dark storm she had unleashed. Watching. waiting, letting me burn. And somewhere, deep inside, the little girl I used to be, the one who thought love meant loyalty at any cost, finally realized. Mom had never been trying to protect the family. She had been trying to protect herself. At any cost. Even if it meant feeding her own daughter to the wolves. I stood up. The chair toppled backward with a crash. The room blurred with tears I refused to let fall. You want me to be the villain? I said, voice shaking but loud enough to make them all flinch. Fine. You made me one. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out. Past my father's shattered face. Past my brother's disgust. Past the man who promised to love me forever. I closed the door behind me. And for the first time in years, the silence wasn't something I was forced into. It was something I chose. The house was too quiet after they left. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, not the golden, sun-drenched silence of a lazy Sunday afternoon. This was a cold, sharp-edged quiet. The kind that made the air taste metallic like blood. I sat on the floor in the hallway for hours, knees hugged to my chest, staring at the front door as if it might swing open again, as if maybe someone would come back. But no one did. The only sound was the occasional creak of the floor settling, the soft hum of the refrigerator. I thought if I stayed still enough, maybe time would rewind. Maybe I could crawl backward into a world where they still loved me. Where my father still called me his little champion, where my brother still texted me dumb memes, where Evan still kissed me on the forehead before bed and whispered, "I'm so lucky I found you." But there's no rewind button. Only the endless ache of now. The next morning my phone was a graveyard. No texts. No missed calls. Just a single group chat notification that I didn't have the courage to open. I imagined them talking about me. Picking apart my life like vultures on a carcass. I tried reaching out once. I wrote out a text to Dad, a long, messy apology that wasn't really an apology, a desperate attempt to explain what it felt like to be 14 and terrified and alone. But before I could hit send, I saw that he'd already left me on read 2 days earlier. I deleted the message. What was the point? I became a ghost in my own life. At work, my designs grew darker, sharper, full of jagged lines and lonely landscapes. Clients noticed. One asked if I was going through something. I laughed too hard and blamed it on just trying a new style. At the grocery store, I'd pass dads helping their daughters pick out cereal and feel my throat close up. At coffee shops, I'd hear women laughing on the phone with their moms and have to turn away, fists clenched, nails biting into my palms. At home, the bed was too big without Evan. I slept on the edge, curled up tight, trying to take up as little space as possible. The empty stretch of mattress beside me felt like another accusation. Maybe if I had spoken up sooner. Maybe if I had been braver. Maybe if I had loved them better. The maybes ate me alive. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I heard phantom footsteps in the hall, Dad coming to check if I was okay, the way he used to when I had nightmares as a kid. I'd bolt upright, heart hammering, only to be met with the cruel stillness of the dark. I stopped checking the door. Stopped hoping. Even my reflection in the mirror became a stranger. Eyes too hollow, skin too pale, lips too pressed together. Like grief had carved a new person out of me, smaller, colder, emptier. And the worst part? I couldn't even blame them for leaving. Because if the roles were reversed, if I thought someone I loved had been hiding a betrayal like that all those years, I didn't know if I could forgive them either. That's the thing no one tells you about isolation. It's not just the loneliness that breaks you. It's the slow, creeping certainty that maybe, just maybe, you deserve it. There's only so long you can drown before your body fights back. Somewhere between the empty nights and the mornings where I couldn't even stomach coffee, something in me snapped. Not a clean, pretty snap, a brutal, jagged one, like drywood splintering under too much pressure. I woke up one morning and didn't cry. I didn't check my phone. I didn't replay the confrontation like a movie in my head. I just stared at the ceiling, fists clenched in the sheets, and thought. No, not like this. If they wanted a villain, I would not be the crumbling girl they pitted. If they wanted to see me as a liar, a betrayer, fine, but it wouldn't be the whole story. They didn't own the ending. I did. I showered. I pulled on jeans and a black sweater, the kind that made me feel sharper armored. I pulled my hair back from my face like I was preparing for war. And I drove. Not to their houses. Not to apologize again, not to beg for understanding they'd already decided I didn't deserve. I drove to a lawyer's office. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to destroy them back. But because I needed to finally put a boundary between myself and the wreckage they had dropped on me. I asked about separation of assets. I asked about protecting myself financially, legally. I asked how to keep Evan from taking everything if he decided to weaponize the pain he was so sure I caused him. The lawyer, an older woman with silver hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful, didn't blink when I told her the basics. You're protecting yourself, she said simply. It's not spite. It's survival. Those words sank into me, heavy and real. Not spite. Survival. I didn't owe anyone my silence anymore. I didn't owe them my ruin. Driving home, the sun was setting in slashes of orange and purple across the sky, so vivid it hurt to look at. For the first time in weeks, I rolled the windows down and let the cold air cut through me. It stung. It made me feel awake again. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Mom had first told me to keep my mouth shut, and I wrote letters. Not to them. To myself. I wrote down everything I wish someone had told 14-year-old Lila. That you don't protect people by letting them hurt you. That love isn't loyalty at the expense of your soul. That silence sometimes is just another kind of wound. I taped one letter to the inside of my closet. I folded the others into my journal. They were tiny, defiant acts. Small fires in the ruins. But they were mine. And this time, no one could snuff them out. It didn't happen all at once. Healing never does. It was slow, painfully slow, like thawing out after years locked inside a frozen room. Some mornings I still woke up heavy with grief, the echoes of their voices ringing in my head. Other mornings there was silence, real silence, not the brutal, suffocating kind, but the soft kind that said, "You're safe now." I moved into a smaller apartment across town. No shared memories etched into the walls. No kitchen stained with old arguments. Just blank, clean space, a place I could make entirely mine. I bought second-hand furniture. I painted one wall in the bedroom a deep green, the color of moss after rain. I planted a small herb garden on the windowsill, even though I'd never been able to keep plants alive before. The basil and rosemary stretched toward the sun anyway, stubborn and bright. It felt like a tiny miracle. I started therapy, something I should have done years ago, but hadn't, because I thought strong meant carrying it all alone. My therapist, a soft-spoken man who looked like he spent weekends hiking mountains, listened without judgment as I cracked open every painful memory. When I told him about the day I caught Mom, about the years of silence, about the night everything fell apart, he didn't ask why I hadn't spoken up. He just said, "You were surviving the only way you knew how." Those words loosened something inside me I didn't even realize had been clenched tight for more than a decade. I wasn't a villain. I wasn't a traitor. I was a child who loved too fiercely and feared too deeply. And later I was a woman trying to protect the shreds of a family that never protected her back. I wasn't broken. I was wounded. And wounds could heal. Little by little, life filled in the cracks. I started taking long walks by the river after work, the sun setting in golden sheets across the water. I reconnected with old friends I had pulled away from without even realizing it. I laughed again, the kind of laugh that starts deep in your chest and bubbles up before you can stop it. One afternoon, sitting by the river with a cheap cup of gas station coffee in hand, I realized I hadn't thought about their anger in days. I hadn't replayed the confrontation. I hadn't read the old messages. I was just here, breathing, alive, and free. I don't know if Dad, or Josh, or Evan will ever come around. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll cling to their version of the story forever. But I'm done carrying the weight of their misunderstanding. I'm done punishing myself for their choices or mine. I saved the last letter, the one I wrote to the 14-year-old girl sitting frozen at the kitchen table, and slipped it between the pages of my journal. Not because I need to reread it every day, but because it's a reminder. I didn't destroy the family. I didn't destroy love. I survived betrayal. I survived silence. And in the end I chose myself. And that is enough.